Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Raymond froze as Heather's chilling words echoed through the room. Maybe I should take her out first. Then you'll know my pain. The knife glinted ominously in her trembling hand, hovering inches from Ruby's pale throat. Ruby whimpered, tears streaming, her voice barely a whisper. Please, don't. The air was electric, every second dragging like an eternity. Raymond's mind raced. He couldn't let this happen. But one false move could push Heather over the edge. As a sudden scuffle erupted, blood smeared across the floor, and the line between betrayal and madness blurred beyond recognition. What would survive this nightmare? Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Chapter 1. Raymond Fletcher stepped out of his old sedan and surveyed the massive Blackwood industrial complex. It was nearly 6 in the morning. His shift had finished later than usual due to a surprise inspection. The steel factory's harsh lights flickered behind him, and a raw chill crept through the parking lot. He'd been working overnights for 7 years. Sometimes he asked himself if the job was eroding his sanity, especially now that his mind brimmed with suspicions and half-formed fears about Ruby, his wife of 10 years. His phone buzzed. A brief text from Ruby. "Hope your night went okay. Kids and I are good." He stared at it, a pang of guilt twisting in his chest. No mention of missing him, no sweet note of love. Then again, she was a teacher, often juggling her early starts with the kids' routine. Maybe he was reading too much into things, but he couldn't shake that lingering, paranoid feeling that something had changed. On the drive through the sleepy roads of upstate New York, Raymond kept replaying the latest cheating wife stories he'd devoured online. It was an odd hobby, one he'd never have imagined taking up. He remembered a few lines in particular stories about men discovering hidden secrets, strange text messages, and suspicious nighttime phone calls. Now, each time Ruby behaved differently, his overactive mind latched onto worst-case scenarios. He had to admit, life at home had felt off. She'd begun dressing more stylishly, her evening routines shifted, and that email he'd glimpsed innocuous, yet somehow intimate. He sighed, telling himself he needed solid proof before confronting her. By the time he pulled into the driveway, the sun had risen in soft pink. Their modest 2-story house looked serene, a place that once symbolized unwavering family love. Yet tension knotted his stomach. Inside, Ruby was frying eggs in the kitchen while Ava, 8, and Ethan, 6, argued over cereal choices. "Daddy!" they both shouted, bounding to greet him. He mustered a smile, kneeling to let them crash into his arms. Ruby glanced at him over her shoulder, her dark hair pinned back. "Long night?" she asked, voice crisp and polite. She didn't walk over to kiss him, which was unusual. He noticed she'd put on a new blouse form-fitting in a color that made her eyes pop. "Yeah, we had an inspection," he said, trying to sound casual. "Everything okay here?" She shrugged. "Heather and Bradley might visit soon. Guess they're passing through." That was the first ripple. Heather was Ruby's older sister, a woman with a wild streak that set Raymond on edge. And Heather's husband, Bradley, rumor had it, they explored alternative lifestyles. The last time they visited, the tension between them and Raymond was almost tangible. Why the sudden poppin'? After tucking the kids into the family room with cartoons, Raymond discreetly studied Ruby while sipping coffee. "You look dressed up," he said, setting his mug down. She glanced at her blouse. "I have a meeting at school. Curriculum changes." He nodded. The anxious part of his mind kept scanning her tone, her expressions. Something about the casual deflection unsettled him. Did her lips twitch with guilt? Or was it just him turning into a paranoid fool? Before he could pry, Ruby's phone buzzed from the counter. She swiped it quickly, shooting him a wary look. "School admin," she said, by way of explanation. Then she grabbed her keys, hollering for the kids to gather their backpacks. No goodbye kiss. Again. Once the house emptied of everyone but him, Raymond settled wearily onto the worn couch. He powered up his laptop. Instead of catching some daytime sleep, he navigated to that same online forum. The stories there enthralled him. Husbands in emotional free fall, cunning wives orchestrating elaborate affairs, manipulative in-laws fueling suspicion. It was disturbing how many scenarios seemed to mirror the slight changes in Ruby's behavior. Her new clothes, her extra caution with phone messages, the sense that an invisible wedge lay between them. He was exhausted, but he couldn't pull away from reading. A swirl of negativity and adrenaline kept him locked in this cycle of suspicion. Hours slipped by as he read accounts of men who discovered hidden text messages or walked in on shocking betrayal. He shut his laptop with a jolt, heart pounding. "Stop it," he muttered. "You've got zero proof." That evening he forced himself to sleep. By the time he woke, it was nearly 8. He heard laughter from downstairs, female laughter that wasn't Ruby's. Then Ruby's voice. "Oh, hush, Heather. You're impossible." He froze, adrenaline spiking. "Already? They're here?" He yanked on a shirt and descended the staircase. Heather lounged on the sofa, sipping wine. Her blonde hair draped dramatically over her shoulders, and her expression radiated that old mischief. Next to her sat Bradley, who gave a lazy salute when Raymond appeared. "Hey, man." Ruby watched him with a careful smile, her arms folded. "Didn't expect you to sleep this long," she teased gently, though tension underscored her voice. Heather patted the seat next to her. "Welcome to the party, sleepyhead." Raymond didn't sit. "Nice to see you both." The polite words tasted sour. Heather's grin was too bright, too knowing. Over dinner pizza delivery, at the kids' request, Raymond sat across from Heather. She asked him casual questions about the factory, about his shift, but her tone hinted at an undercurrent of innuendo. Meanwhile, Bradley shared stories about his adventures with Heather, dropping half-coded references to wild parties. Ruby attempted to steer the conversation toward more wholesome topics, though her hands shook slightly when she lifted her glass. Ava and Ethan seemed oblivious, chattering happily about their new video game, but Raymond felt on guard. He caught a fleeting glance between Heather and Ruby that seemed tense. Finally, the kids headed upstairs. Heather announced, "Oh, we're staying the weekend. Didn't Ruby tell you?" Raymond managed a tight smile. Must have slipped her mind. Ruby stared at her plate, cheeks coloring. "I meant to mention it," she mumbled. With the kids in bed, the foursome attempted small talk in the living room. The tension was palpable. Eventually, Bradley yawned and declared he was turning in. Ruby followed soon after, eyes downcast. Heather lingered, swirling wine in her glass. Once the others were out of earshot, she turned to Raymond. "So," she said quietly, leaning forward, "you've been working nights, reading who knows what. I can see the circles under your eyes. Everything okay in paradise?" He bristled. "Everything's fine." Heather smirked. "Right. Because you seem jumpy like a man expecting skeletons to tumble out of closets?" He narrowed his eyes. "If you're implying something, spit it out." She took a final sip of wine, set the glass aside. "Just that secrets never stay hidden forever," she said, voice thick with some private amusement. Then she slipped upstairs, leaving him rattled. In bed, he struggled to sleep beside Ruby. The memory of that ill-advised fling with Heather back in high school consumed his thoughts. He was only 17. She was 19, unstoppable, adventurous. It was a single night of passion at a friend's party. Later, once he dated Ruby, he buried it. But Heather occasionally dropped subtle reminders, never enough to blow up the family, but enough to keep him uneasy. He watched Ruby's sleeping form in the faint glow of the streetlight outside. She looked peaceful, yet a hint of distance lingered on her features. He exhaled. This dread in his chest was becoming too heavy. He needed clarity. The next morning, as he prepared to leave for his night shift, Heather and Bradley were out, supposedly sightseeing. Ruby was uncharacteristically quiet, her brow furrowed. Before he could ask if she was okay, she muttered something about final grades at school. He kissed the kids goodbye and left, heart pounding with intangible fear. Driving off, he couldn't help but think, something's going to happen. Something big. Chapter 2. Early in his shift, Raymond found himself in the cluttered break room, microwaving stale coffee. His co-worker, Vincent Gregory, an older ex-military man, nodded in greeting. The overhead fluorescent hummed eerily. "You look worse every day, soldier," Vincent said, voice gravelly. He and Raymond weren't close friends, but they'd talked enough for Vincent to pick up on the tension. "Gotta fix what's eating you before it breaks you?" Raymond shrugged. "Long story." He hesitated, then added, "I've been reading these online stories about cheating spouses. Now I can't stop seeing signs everywhere." Vincent studied him, frowning. "You better get facts, not fantasies." Halfway through the night, Raymond's phone buzzed. He saw Ruby's number flash. Strange. She rarely called this late. He ducked into a supply corridor and answered. "Ray," she whispered. "Heather's driving me insane. She's hinting about our private business, even made a crack about you and her like something from the past?" Raymond's pulse hammered. "She's referencing high school. She's messing with you." "Yeah. And Bradley's I don't know. Giving me weird vibes, too, like they're plotting something." Ruby's voice trembled. "Maybe I'll send them home tomorrow." He exhaled. "Do that. Kick them out if you have to. I'll back you." "Okay," she said, soft with relief. Then, "Good night." He ended the call, a flicker of hope that maybe Ruby wasn't part of something shady, or was she just spooked? The next evening, a small explosion in the casting department forced the entire factory to shut down temporarily. Management decided to send the night shift home 4 hours early. Raymond's anxiety spiked. Going home unexpectedly was exactly how many men discovered the worst. The stories he'd read told him so. He tried to brush it off, yet a heavy dread gnawed inside. He hopped in his sedan, driving through dark, quiet streets. Relax, he thought. Ruby's probably alone with the kids, maybe reading a book. Heather and Bradley might be asleep. Or they left like Ruby mentioned. Parking outside his house, he noticed Ruby's car. Lights glowed from the living room. He saw no sign of Heather's or Bradley's vehicles. The place looked calm, but his heart pounded like a drum. He cracked open the front door. Quiet. A rustling noise drifted from the kitchen. He heard a male murmur and an urgent hush. Was that Bradley? Fear, anger, confusion churned in him, fueling adrenaline. He strode into the kitchen. The sight froze him. Heather leaned at the counter in a flimsy robe. She jumped like a startled cat when she spotted him. "Ray, you're home early," she said, smoothing her robe. She tried for a seductive smile, but her eyes flickered with alarm. His gaze darted around. "Where's Ruby?" Heather shrugged, stepping in front of him as if to block the rest of the kitchen. He smelled strong perfume mixed with tension. "She's out shopping," she lied easily. "Bradley's in the basement messing with some leaky pipe, but everything's—" He noticed a second coffee mug on the table. steam still rising. Funny. She left hot coffee behind? Heather tried to laugh it off, but it sounded forced. Maybe she'll be back soon, she purred. Meanwhile, we could catch up like old times. Suddenly, Bradley emerged from the basement door. He looked flustered, his shirt half untucked. Ray didn't expect you so soon. I was, checking a leak. He flashed an insincere grin. Raymond glared, the pieces swirling in his head. Leak, huh? Right. Bradley cleared his throat. Ruby, she left a while ago. She took the kids to Grandma's. That didn't align with Ruby's call earlier, the logical side of Raymond realized. They're covering for something. Heather's robe, Bradley's disheveled look. Were they hooking up in his own house? Or had they done something else? Heather inched closer, lowering her voice. Relax, Ray. Don't blow things out of proportion. Her gaze flicked meaningfully to his phone in his pocket. Rumors can ruin a man's life, you know. One cry of misconduct, one mention of that high school fling turning non-consensual. People believe the worst. He stiffened, blood roaring in his ears. That was pure blackmail, referencing a potential false rape claim. You think I'm scared of your lies? He hissed. She smirked. No? Because the police might see it differently. Ruby might too. She fingered the edge of her robe, provocative and threatening all at once. Fury pulsed in him. He longed to knock Bradley's smug face into the sink. But a little voice reminded him, she can claim anything. He clenched his fists, turning on his heel. I'm not doing this, he muttered, storming out. In the driveway, he called Ruby. No answer. The voice in his head screamed that something foul was afoot, but he couldn't barge back in and assault them. Think logically, he told himself. He jumped into his car and drove off, breath ragged. He circled the block, tried Ruby again. Straight to voicemail. He pulled over to a quiet corner, desperate for clarity. Could she be with someone else? Or is Heather controlling the entire narrative? He scrolled through texts from Ruby. Recent ones were innocuous. Then he saw a short chain from a Mr. Armstrong, presumably a teacher colleague. The messages were bland, but he couldn't help reading suspicion into them. Everything felt twisted. Eventually, he forced himself to drive to a 24-hour diner, sipping bitter coffee and stewing over the situation. Heather's cunning expression was etched into his mind. Did she plan to sabotage him? Or was there more at play, possibly involving Bradley and Ruby? He shuddered at the possibility. The cheating stories he'd read had triggered a nightmare scenario in real life. I need proof, he thought, because right now it was all insinuations and no hard evidence. Chapter 3. 3 hours later, near dawn, Ruby finally called back, voice tight. I'm sorry, Ray. Heather's been difficult. She made these weird accusations about you. Said you tried something with her. Then she started telling me about you two hooking up in high school. What the hell is going on? Raymond pressed the phone to his ear, heart twisting. She's lying about me forcing anything. But we did have a fling back then. I never wanted you to know because it was a mistake. Ruby took a shaky breath. Why not tell me? Did you think I'd never find out? He groaned. I was afraid you'd judge me. Or maybe Heather would spin it. Look, I came home early. I found them Heather in a robe, Bradley lurking around. Seemed shady. Her silence crackled with tension. I don't know what to believe. Heather's my sister. But she's manipulative, and Bradley's pushing me to do something drastic. Raymond's pulse skyrocketed. What do you mean? I don't want to talk about it now, she whispered. I'm exhausted. Let's talk later. With no closure, Raymond finished another agonizing shift. This time, he confronted Vincent in the break room. I might lose my marriage, he said bluntly. My sister-in-law wants to blackmail me. My wife is halfway believing her. Vincent's expression hardened. Son, you stand your ground. Get clarity, and if you need to defend yourself, you do it with your wits, not brute force. Raymond nodded gratefully, though an undercurrent of raw anger still throbbed. He had no illusions. If Heather or Bradley kept pushing, he might snap. Determined not to be blindsided, Raymond spent his next free day quietly gathering info. He checked phone records, rummaged through Ruby's laptop, feeling guilty but justified. He found minimal clues, a few vague references to meeting someone for drinks after school, but nothing explicit about an affair. He also looked for any sign Heather might have left behind. A mislaid earring, a suspicious text. All he found was a half-smoked cigarette on the back porch. Nobody in his household smoked. That afternoon, as he walked to the mailbox, Heather's car pulled into the driveway. She hopped out, wearing skin-tight jeans and a predatory smile. "Afternoon, Ray," she said, stepping uncomfortably close. "Ruby's at school. Kids are at a friend's. So I thought I'd drop by." He glared. "You're not welcome here without Ruby." She looked around with a laugh. "Still our parents' old place, right? Don't be so territorial." His eyes narrowed. "Get to the point." Heather's lips curled. "I gave you a chance to keep things friendly. You refused me. So I told Ruby a very convincing story." She dragged a finger along his chest. "It's your word against mine." Raymond swallowed revulsion. "You lied about me forcing you. Ruby's not stupid. She'll see through it." Heather shrugged. "Will she? She already believes you hit our fling. Plus, Bradley's prepared to say he overheard you threatening me. It's easy to spin the narrative that you're an abuser." A tremor of rage shook him. "You're insane. What do you even want?" Her eyes gleamed. "Excitement. Power. Maybe I want you physically. Maybe I want to watch you squirm. Not sure yet." She tapped her temple. "But I do know you'll regret crossing me." He was one heartbeat away from raging at her. But he remembered Vincent's advice. Using raw force would only prove Heather's point. So he stepped back, inhaling deeply. Heather laughed softly, as though enjoying his restraint. "So, is Ruby around? I should say hi." He kept his tone measured. "Get off my property, now." She winked, then turned and strutted to her car, pulling away with a squeal of tires. Raymond stood there, fists clenched, wishing he had a plan. That night, instead of sleeping, he hovered near Ruby, noticing she got multiple late calls. She'd whisper in the hallway, occasionally glancing at him. He caught a fragment. "Yes, I'm not sure yet. I need to think." When she returned to bed, she avoided his gaze. Eventually, he mustered the courage. "Who's calling so late?" She rubbed her temples. "School friend. We're organizing an EndoFire event." He nodded slowly, not buying it. But pushing her might lead to more evasiveness. A day later, Bradley texted him out of nowhere. "We should go for a beer, man. Clear the air." Against his better judgment, Raymond agreed, hoping to glean intel. They met at a low-lit sports bar. Bradley launched into an overly friendly spiel about how marriages get stale, implying open relationships were healthy. He asked if Raymond had ever tried new experiences. Raymond's jaw tightened. "I'm not interested in that." Bradley shrugged. "Suit yourself, but Ruby's feeling pretty hurt. Maybe she needs to see you're not the only one who can slip up." As they parted ways, Bradley clapped him on the shoulder. "Don't let your temper blow up. If you ever got violent with me, it'd ruin your life. Just talk it out like adults. Maybe there's a way all of us can coexist." Raymond left, stomach churning. The man was implying a swinger scenario or something equally twisted. And was that a threat? He realized they might be pushing Ruby into a corner, exploiting her emotional turmoil. That evening, Ruby went to a doctor's appointment. She returned smelling of alcohol. He confronted her gently. "Is everything okay? You smell like booze?" She froze, flushing. "It was just a drink after. Bradley and Heather, they were there. They said they had something to discuss." He stared. "You're going out drinking with them? Right after Heather accused me of assault?" Ruby's lips trembled. "I'm confused, Ray. I'm angry at you for hiding your fling with Heather, but I also sense they're manipulating me. I don't know who to trust." A bolt of sorrow pierced him. "Trust me," he whispered, heart aching. She shut her eyes. "I can't even trust myself right now." Chapter 4. A week later, tensions reached a breaking point. Heather dropped by once more. Ruby had stepped out to pick up Eva and Ethan from a playdate. Raymond was alone, perfect for Heather's schemes. She sauntered into the living room without knocking, wearing a low-cut top that made her intentions plain. "So," she purred, "last chance to settle this. I want you in my bed. Just once. Then we bury everything, no more accusations, no more drama. If not, I'll call Ruby and the cops, screaming about how you forced me again." Raymond's stomach churned with revulsion. "You're insane if you think I'll betray Ruby like that. Get out." Heather's eyes went cold. "Fine. Have it your way." She yanked at her own top, tousling her hair, making it look disheveled. "Rape me or not, I'll say you did." She immediately grabbed her phone, fake tears brimming. "Ruby, help! Ray pinned me. She's hurting me." Raymond stared in disbelief. "You psycho!" He reached for the phone, but it was too late. She'd left a voicemail sobbing hysterically about a supposed assault. He heard Ruby's frantic voice in the background, then Heather hung up. She shot him a triumphant grin. "Now she's on her way. Good luck explaining." He was stunned but refused to cower. "I'll tell her the truth." She laughed. "Which truth? The one where we had a fling, or the one where you just tried to rip my clothes off?" Within 20 minutes, Ruby burst in, eyes wild. Heather had mussed her hair and arranged her blouse to look torn. He attacked me, Ruby," she wailed. "Just like in high school. He's a monster." Raymond raised his hands, voice trembling with controlled anger. "She's lying through her teeth. She demanded I sleep with her. I said no. She staged this. Called you." Ruby's gaze ping-ponged between them. "Heather, is that—" Heather wept harder, cutting her off. "You can't trust him. He's twisted. He even admitted we hooked up before." Ruby's face contorted in fury and heartbreak. "Ray, how could you?" She turned away from him, hugging herself as though freezing. He wanted to scream at the injustice. "Ruby, please! I swear I never touched her. She threatened to frame me if I didn't do what she wanted." Heather sobbed louder. "Lies! All lies!" Ruby shot him a tortured glance. "I can't. I need space." She guided Heather toward the door. "Bradley's outside. We're leaving." Raymond's chest felt hollow. "Ruby, please, talk to me." She paused, eyes shimmering with tears. "I don't know how. Heather told me you two in high school, you forced her back then. She says you tried again." He reeled in shock. "That's bull! It was consensual. She wanted it." Ruby closed her eyes. "I just can't deal with this." She walked out, leaving him in a swirling storm of betrayal and rage. Later that night, after tears and heated phone exchanges, Bradley called Ruby, urging her to exact revenge if she felt truly betrayed. "He's a lost cause," Bradley murmured, voice smooth. "These men never change. Make him feel worthless. If you want to be free, do something that can't be undone." Ruby, raw from Heather's meltdown, consumed half a bottle of wine. She listened to Bradley's poison. All the old love she felt for Raymond cracked under the weight of uncertainty. Bradley said, "Let me help you even the score. Come have some drinks with me and Heather. Then we'll head back to your place, if you're up for it." Ruby's emotions warred inside her, but she ended up at a neon-lit bar, downing shots with Heather and Bradley. She reasoned that if Raymond had truly been so vile, maybe she owed him a dose of heartbreak. Heather whispered suggestions. "He humiliated you. So humiliate him." Ruby's mind was fogged by booze, anger, and heartbreak. She wanted to punish Raymond, but had no clarity. Bradley cozied up, whispering sweet manipulations. Eventually, Ruby's resolve collapsed. At midnight, they all piled into Bradley's car. Heather orchestrated it, sneering at Ruby's confusion. They reached Ruby's house. She stumbled inside, laughing bitterly. "This'll show him," she muttered, half lost to the liquor. Bradley pressed up behind her, guiding her to the sofa. Heather lingered near the hall, an eerie grin on her face. "Go on," she teased. "He deserves this." Ruby let out a strangled sob, then let Bradley's hands roam. She was so drunk, her sense of right or wrong was blurred. "One night," she told herself, "and I'll get back at him for everything." Fate or misfortune intervened. Raymond, finishing his shift early due to an emergency shutdown, arrived home around 2 a.m. The living room light glowed dimly. He opened the door to see Bradley entangled with Ruby on the sofa, her blouse askew, a half-empty bottle on the coffee table. She barely seemed conscious of her surroundings, moaning dully. Rage ignited in Raymond's veins. "You bastard!" he roared, lunging at Bradley. Bradley tried to leap up, but Raymond's fists connected first. A savage brawl erupted. Ruby shrieked, stumbling back. She was too drunk to separate them. At that moment, Heather darted in from the hallway, a glass vase in hand. With a sickening crunch, she slammed it against the back of Raymond's head. Glass shattered, blood spattered. Raymond crumpled, disoriented. Bradley scrambled away, panting, face bruised. Ruby stood there, finally realizing the horror of what had just transpired. She stared at Raymond's limp form, panic flooding her. Oh God, what have we done?" Neighbors, alerted by the commotion, called the police. An ambulance whisked Raymond to the hospital, half-conscious. The medics found a large gash on his scalp, but no immediate life-threatening damage. Bradley spun a narrative of self-defense, claiming Raymond had attacked him unprovoked. Ruby sobered with icy dread as the officers took statements. She tried explaining she'd been drunk, that this wasn't some random assault, but Heather's story overshadowed hers, accusing Raymond of prior violence. The stage was set for total marital collapse. Chapter 5. A faint beep, sterile white lights, a dull throbbing behind his eyes. That was Raymond's initial impression as he drifted back into consciousness. He lay in a stark hospital room, an IV taped to his arm. The headache felt like someone had hammered a spike through his skull. Slowly, the swirl of confusion lifted enough for him to remember the chaotic brawl. Heather's vase, blood everywhere, Ruby's horrified face. As he blinked, trying to focus on the generic print of a seascape on the wall, he noticed the presence of an unfamiliar woman near his bedside. She wore plain clothes, her badge tucked at her waist, definitely a police officer. He parted his lips, voice scratchy. "Where?" She turned, a polite but neutral smile on her face. "Mr. Fletcher, you're in St. Matthew's General Hospital. I'm Officer Burton. You've been unconscious for nearly a day." Raymond tried to process. Nearly a day. His hand lifted to gingerly touch the bandage wrapping his head. "I feel like I got run over," he muttered. Officer Burton nodded, scanning a small notebook. "You sustained a significant laceration from a blunt object, possibly a glass vase. There's also a note that you were involved in an altercation at your residence. Can you confirm that? He frowned, tasting bitterness on his tongue. I came home early. Found. His voice quivered, anger mingling with shame. Found my brother-in-law, Bradley, hooking up with my wife, Ruby. We fought. Then Heather, my wife's sister, hit me with a vase from behind. Officer Burton kept her expression carefully neutral. Bradley Emmett claims you attacked him unprovoked. Heather Emmett says you've been threatening her for weeks. Raymond let out a mirthless laugh that made his head throb harder. Yeah, well, that's their spin. They're lying. He paused, forcing clarity. Listen, officer, I was defending myself. They manipulated my wife. I know it sounds crazy, but Heather set me up. She's been trying to blackmail me. I have no illusions about how insane it looks. Officer Burton made a note. You've been charged with assault, but Mr. Emmett stated he's not pressing charges at this time, though that could change. The hospital might hold you for observation a bit longer, so I'd suggest you get legal counsel. His stomach twisted. The last thing he wanted was more legal trouble. Assault? Hell, he was the one nearly brained by a vase. He nodded weakly. Right. Thanks for letting me know. She closed her notebook. If you recall any further details, contact me. For now, rest up. He closed his eyes, heartbreak colliding with fury. If there was any doubt about Ruby's involvement, seeing her with Bradley had shattered it. A swirl of betrayal, confusion, and raw anger pulsed through him, heavier than the morphine dulling his physical pain. Hours later, as the nurse changed his IV, Raymond worked up the nerve to ask, Has my wife been by? The nurse, a gentlewoman in her 50s, offered a sympathetic smile. Not that I've seen, hun. You did get a visitor from your employer, someone named Vincent Gregory, I think. He said he'd return tomorrow. Raymond's heart sank. So, Ruby hadn't come. He wasn't sure if he wanted her here. The memory of her drunken state, entangled with Bradley, was branded into his mind. He felt a strange mixture of wanting to see her face, wanting some explanation, and wanting nothing but to cut her out of his life for good. He stared at the ceiling, reevaluating everything. Am I the villain in her eyes now? Because Heather spun a story that I'm some abusive monster? The thought of it churned his gut. The old Ray might have swallowed his pride, tried to patch things up, but something had snapped inside him. And if there was one thing he knew, he wasn't going to roll over and let them bury him with lies. Late that afternoon, the door opened quietly. Ruby stepped inside, looking pale and hollow. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes rimmed red. She clutched her purse with trembling hands. He watched her in silence. She stood there, uncertain, like a guilty stranger. Finally, he cleared his throat. You decided to show. She inched closer. Ray. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I was so confused. I didn't know how to face you after what happened. His voice emerged harsh. What exactly happened, Ruby? Because from where I stood, you were letting Bradley crawl all over you on my damn couch. She flinched. I was drunk. Heather and Bradley, they convinced me. She trailed off, tears forming. I'm not making excuses. I did it to hurt you or to get even. Or I don't know. Because I was manipulated. But I never wanted it to go that far. His heart hammered hearing her half-admission. He wanted to lash out. She did it to get even? For what? Heather's false story about me raping her in high school? Because she believed that? He forced himself to keep calm. So you believe your sister over me? The same sister who's been hitting on me for weeks, threatening me? Ruby's lip quivered. I don't know what to believe anymore. She looked away. When Heather told me you forced her, that you threatened to do it again, the idea that you'd kept your past fling with her a secret, it broke something in me. He pressed his hands against the bed rail, knuckles white. I never forced her. It was consensual. She's twisting it for her sick agenda. Ruby nodded slowly. I'm starting to see that. She sniffled. Bradley and Heather are toxic. I realize it now. They kept pushing me to do things, telling me you deserved punishment, that you were lying. I was so angry and drunk, I let them manipulate me. She bowed her head. But it was my choice. I betrayed you. Raymond stared at her, raw pain swelling. This admission tore him apart, but a flicker of cold satisfaction came from hearing her at least own her part. Did you come here expecting I'd say it's okay and we can move past it? He asked quietly. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I don't know what I expected. I couldn't stay away. I had to see if you were alive, if there was any chance. He held up a hand. Stop. You humiliated me, Ruby. You let that asshole violate our marriage, and you sided with Heather's lies about me. That's not something I can brush aside. Her tears flowed freely. Ray, please don't shut me out. I was foolish. I was enraged. Let me make it right. I want to fix this. He felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to throw her out of the room. Another part of him, the old loyal side, wanted to comfort her. But the new side, the part battered by betrayal, spoke louder. Get out, he rasped, voice shaking with suppressed fury. Go back to Bradley. Go back to your dear sister. See if that fixes your guilt. Ruby let out a soft sob. You don't mean that? Yes, I do, he snarled. I need time. Or maybe I don't need time. Maybe we're just done. That final sentence struck her like a physical blow. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, turning away. Without another word, she left, quietly shutting the door. Raymond's chest heaved. The sense of finality sank in. Maybe we're just done. The words echoed emptily. The next day, while a nurse checked his vitals, he couldn't stop worrying about Ava and Ethan. Were they safe? Who was watching them if Ruby was unraveling? He despised the thought of Heather or Bradley being near his children. The nurse mentioned he had a phone call from a Janet Fletcher, his sister. He took the call. Janet's tense voice came through. Ray, I've got your kids with me. Ruby's mother brought them over, said it might be best if they stayed here for a bit. Relief coursed through him. Thank God. They're okay? Yeah. A little confused about everything, Janet said carefully. But they're safe. Are you all right, big brother? He swallowed hard. I'll live. Tell Eva and Ethan I love them. And I'll figure out something soon. Hanging up, he felt a new wave of determination. He needed to protect his kids from this swirling chaos. He might be battered physically, but he wasn't out of the fight. That afternoon, the door opened on a broad-shouldered figure. Vincent Gregory, still in his grimy factory jumpsuit, stepped inside. He gave Raymond a curt nod. Heard you got in a scuffle. Raymond forced a dry chuckle. You could say that. Vincent settled by the bed. You look like hammered hell. Feels that way, Raymond admitted, then dropped his voice. I got hammered from behind by my wife's sister. Vincent let out a low whistle. I'd ask for details, but it seems complicated. Raymond explained briefly. The false rape accusation, the drunken affair, the hospital. Vincent listened in grim silence. At length, he said, So, you're the one they're painting as a villain. Raymond nodded, bitterness tinging his tone. I was lucky Bradley dropped charges for now, but the cops see me as the aggressor. Vincent pursed his lips. Men in your shoes sometimes go to jail while the real backstabbers walk free. You gotta be careful. Raymond's eyes hardened. I won't let them destroy me. I'm done being a clueless victim. There must be a way to prove they're lying. Vincent shrugged. Better gather evidence. Show they lured you, cornered you. If you have phone logs, texts, recordings, might help. An idea flickered. I do have some old texts from Heather vaguely threatening, and I might install cameras if I ever get back home. Vincent grunted in approval. Smart. Keep your wits. Don't do anything rash. Raymond smirked slightly. No more bar fights, I promise. The next day, the hospital released him under strict orders to rest. He left with a throbbing head, but a burning drive for resolution. As soon as he was outside, he called his sister Janet again. I'm picking up the kids. They're staying with me. Janet hesitated. What about Ruby? He swallowed. I don't care what she says. She forfeited the right to keep them in that toxic environment, at least until I figure out the next step. He also called an attorney recommended by a friend. The attorney, a non-nonsense woman named Belinda Soto, listened carefully to his story. If your wife and her sister are accusing you of assault, or worse, you need a strategy, she said. Consider filing for divorce or legal separation. If you're serious about protecting your kids, you can request a temporary custody arrangement. Raymond's heart tightened. Divorce? The finality of that word shook him, but after everything, perhaps it was inevitable. Yeah, he said, voice heavy. Let's proceed with a dissolution. I can't stay married to a woman who cheated with her brother-in-law. That evening he drove to Janet's house. She greeted him with a worried hug. Ava and Ethan appeared from the living room, eyes wide. "Daddy!" they cried, rushing to embrace him. He knelt, ignoring the pain in his head, hugging them fiercely. "Are you okay, Dad?" Ava asked, noticing his bandage. He mustered a comforting smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just a little bump." Janet ushered them into the kitchen, offering a quick meal. Ruby called. "She knows you're picking them up. She seemed upset." Raymond clenched his jaw. "Upset or not, the kids come with me." Sure enough, minutes later, Ruby stormed in, eyes red. "You can't just take them," she sputtered. He rose calmly. "I'm their father. You let your sister and her sleazebag husband pollute our home. My kids deserve a safe place." Ruby's eyes shimmered with tears. "Bradley and Heather left. They're gone from the house. It's just me." He noted a flicker of relief at that, but didn't relent. "We'll sort out an official arrangement soon. But for now, they stay with me, or with my sister if needed." Ethan clung to his father's hand, looking anxious. Ava glared at her mom, apparently sensing the tension. Ruby's shoulders slumped. "Fine," she whispered. "But I want to see them." "You can." "On my terms," he said, voice steeled. Then he guided the kids out, ignoring the ache in his chest as he heard Ruby quietly weeping behind him. For the next week, Raymond juggled caring for the kids with handling attorney appointments. He moved into a cheap motel temporarily, not wanting to step foot in the house that held so many wretched memories. The kids asked, "Where's Mommy?" He gave gentle answers, explaining they'd see her soon, but that Dad needed some space. In the nights, he lay awake, replaying the betrayal. Part of him craved an apology from Ruby that would fix everything, but a colder part recognized it was beyond repair. She let Bradley defile their marriage on that couch. She believed Heather's horrific lies. He also wrestled with guilt had his suspicious nature driven her away. Then he reminded himself. Her choice was hers. She could have come to him, demanded the truth about Heather's claims. Instead, she'd chosen to punish him physically and emotionally. One evening, while grabbing a quick dinner at a bar near the motel, Raymond caught a glimpse of a familiar figure at the far end of the counter. Bradley. He looked disheveled, a bruise still visible on his jaw from their fight. Raymond's heart pounded. "Walk away," Logic said. But he also wanted to glean info. He strode over, fists clenched at his sides. "Surprised to see you here," he growled. Bradley eyed him warily. "I won't press charges for assault," he said. "But don't push me." Raymond barked a sarcastic laugh. "You press charges on me? You banged my wife in my house." Bradley shrugged, swirling his beer. "Look, man, it wasn't personal. Ruby was pissed at you. She was half-wasted. I helped her do what she wanted." Rage simmered beneath Raymond's skin, but he forced himself to keep it cool. "You manipulated her, you scumbag, along with that psycho sister-in-law?" Bradley snorted. "If you want the truth, talk to Heather. She's the one who orchestrated everything. She's always had a twisted thing for you, but you turned her down. She wanted payback." Raymond stiffened. "Heather claims I forced her in high school. She's lying." "Of course she's lying," Bradley said, rolling his eyes. "But hey, she's my wife. I gotta back her up in public." He took a long drink. "And now, well, she's pushing me to keep up the charade." Raymond's brow furrowed. "So you admit you're lying? You realize I can use that in court?" Bradley shrugged with an air of resigned arrogance. "You got no proof. Off-the-record conversation in a bar means nothing. If I see you record me, I'll deny it. Hell, I'll scream harassment." The urge to punch him flared again, but Raymond suppressed it. He needed a bigger plan. So he merely hissed, "Enjoy your drink, because soon enough I'll see you both pay for what you did." Bradley gave a mocking salute. "Give Ruby my regards, or don't." Raymond turned on his heel, hatred burning. "I have to be smarter than them." Sick of wallowing in anger, Raymond met with his lawyer Belinda the next morning. He instructed her to file for divorce, citing adultery and emotional harm. Belinda assured him that while it could get messy, they had strong grounds, especially if he proved Ruby's affair and her family's manipulation. He left the lawyer's office feeling a sense of grim liberation. This was the first real step toward reclaiming his life. He might be battered and betrayed, but he sure as hell wouldn't stay down. Chapter 6. Belinda Soto, Raymond's attorney, swiftly set the divorce process in motion. She filed preliminary papers for separation and child custody. The official complaint cited Ruby's infidelity with Bradley and the potential endangerment from Heather's hostility. A week later, as he sat in Belinda's cramped office, she skimmed through responses from Ruby's newly hired lawyer. "Looks like they're not contesting the separation, but are pushing for joint custody," she said, pursing her lips. "They claim your recent violence makes you unfit for sole custody." Raymond's jaw tightened. "Violence? I was defending my home from that slime ball." Belinda raised a brow. "They're leveraging the hospital incident, and apparently Heather gave a statement about you being verbally aggressive for weeks. It's mostly hearsay, but still it complicates matters." He exhaled. "What about the affair? Does that weigh in my favor?" Belinda nodded. "In this state, marital misconduct can influence custody decisions if it affects the children's environment. But we need proof like textual evidence of Ruby acknowledging the affair or Bradley admitting it." Raymond thought of the confrontation with Bradley at the bar. If only I had recorded it. Another day, Raymond arranged a short meeting with Ruby to discuss the children's school schedules. They sat in the corner of a local coffee shop. She looked exhausted, hair pulled into a loose ponytail, eyes downcast. Ava and Ethan were at a friend's house, so it was just the two of them. A part of him missed the loving warmth they once shared. But the memory of her on that couch with Bradley still overshadowed everything. He cleared his throat. So, the kids. Eva's got a class field trip next week. Ethan's parent-teacher conference is on Friday. Ruby nodded meekly. I want to attend. I still want to be part of their education. He studied her face. You can attend, but they live with me, for now. She swallowed, eyes shining with regret. Ray, I never wanted it to come to this. If I could take back that night. He cut her off. You can't. Her lips quivered. You're divorcing me, aren't you? He tapped the table, heart pounding. What other option do I have? You slept with your brother-in-law, believed your sister's insane claims, and nearly got me locked up. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I was confused, manipulated. I'm so sorry. Please believe me. He forced his gaze away. A swirl of pity, anger, and heartbreak churned. I believe you were confused, he said softly. But it doesn't change what happened. I can't unsee that betrayal. She sniffled. Heather and Bradley left town for now. They said they need space. Maybe they're skipping out on everything. I don't know. I told them to stay away. A flicker of satisfaction crossed him. Good. At least they're gone. But the damage is done. They spoke more about scheduling for the kids, each step laced with tension. At the end, she reached out as if to squeeze his hand. But he pulled away. Goodbye, Ruby, he said, voice tight. Then he walked out. In the following days, Raymond's mind kept drifting to how best to undermine Heather's credibility. She was the real puppeteer behind his downfall. If he exposed her lies, maybe that would help the divorce and custody case. He scoured old messages. Sure enough, he found a thread from weeks ago, Heather texting him about meeting up to talk private matters, hinting at sexual undertones. He also recalled she once bragged about partying with random men. If he could find someone who'd seen her unscrupulous side, it might help. Late one night, he dialed a friend from high school who vaguely remembered rumors of Heather hooking up with half the football team. The friend, a woman named Tina, confirmed Heather had a long record of questionable behavior, but wasn't sure that alone would hold up in court. Raymond sighed. I need something more concrete. Shortly afterward, Officer Burton, the same officer who interviewed him at the hospital, requested a follow-up statement about the fight. He met her at the police station. She seemed professional, yet empathetic. All right, Mr. Fletcher, she said, settling across from him. Bradley Emmett's version claims you assaulted him without cause. Heather Emmett states she saw you raging. Ruby Fletcher, your wife, didn't provide a consistent narrative, citing drunken memory lapses. So, the case is ambiguous. Raymond took a deep breath. I was defending my property and my dignity. He was sleeping with my wife. Heather's been threatening me for weeks. She told me she'd claim rape if I didn't have sex with her. Burton studied him. That's serious. Do you have evidence? He grimaced. Only some texts that imply she wanted me physically, but nothing explicitly stating blackmail. She jotted down notes. If you recall anything or find more proof, let me know. Meanwhile, the department won't press charges unless Bradley or Heather changes their stance. He nodded, grateful that at least he wasn't behind bars. But a sense of injustice raged within. Heather and Bradley had essentially orchestrated his downfall, walked away unscathed. He needed to fix that. One evening, after a draining meeting with Belinda, Raymond slumped against his car seat outside the attorney's office. The weight of it all bore down on him, the possibility that a single new accusation could land him in jail. Men have gone to prison on flimsier accusations. He remembered the stories he read online, cautionary tales of men who lost everything when their wives and in-laws fabricated assault claims. The fear gnawed at him. He refused to be one of them. A text from Vincent popped up. Stay sharp. Don't let them corner you again. Raymond managed a grim smile. At least he had an ally, albeit a distant co-worker. Ava and Ethan, meanwhile, were picking up on the tension. Ava, wise beyond her years, cornered him after dinner at the motel. "Dad, is Mommy mad at you?" He sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed. We're having grown-up problems, sweetie." Her brow knit. "I heard Aunt Janet say something about divorce. Does that mean we can't live together anymore?" His heart clenched. "It means your mom and I might not be married, but we both love you and your brother." Ethan piped up. "Why can't you just say sorry to each other and fix it?" Raymond fought tears. "It's more complicated than that, buddy." A few days later, the family court scheduled a preliminary hearing for custody arrangements. Belinda accompanied Raymond. Across the aisle, Ruby appeared with her lawyer, looking anxious. The children were not present. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, skimmed the statements. "Mr. Fletcher, you're requesting primary custody, citing an unsafe environment created by Heather and Bradley Emmett's involvement, correct?" Raymond nodded. "Yes, Your Honor," Ruby's lawyer contested. "My client was under the influence of manipulative relatives, but she has since barred them from her home. She is fully capable of caring for the children." Belinda retorted. "Ruby Fletcher engaged in an extramarital affair with her brother-in-law. That directly impacted the marital home. We fear reoccurrence or potential emotional harm to the children if such influences remain." Ruby, face flushed, glanced at Raymond with pleading eyes. The judge tapped her pen. "We will not settle every detail today. But given the conflict, I'm granting temporary custody to Mr. Fletcher for 90 days, with Ms. Fletcher having visitation rights. We will revisit permanent custody once more evidence is presented." Raymond exhaled relief. At least for now, the kids were safely with him. Ruby looked devastated, tears glistening. After the hearing, Ruby approached him in the hallway. "Ray, I don't want to fight you over the kids, but I love them. Please let me see them often." He regarded her, remembering how heartbreak once threatened to shatter him. Now, he felt more steeled. "I won't stop you from seeing them," he said quietly. "Just keep Heather and Bradley far away." She nodded vehemently. "I promise. They're not welcome in my life anymore." A flicker of pity rose. "Then show me that you're serious about cutting them off. If I hear a whisper of them being around the kids, all bets are off." Her tears trickled. "All right. Whatever it takes." Even though the short hearing ended in a small victory for Raymond, the divorce and potential property splits loomed. The house was still under both their names. He visited once, noticed Ruby had changed the locks. Fine, he thought. I'm not going back anyway. He wanted the place sold. Let them split the equity. Be done. He felt no fondness for that couch or any room that reeked of betrayal. He hammered out details with Belinda, who assured him, "We'll press for an equitable settlement. We have strong proof of adultery." In the weeks that followed, life settled into a bizarre new normal. He found a cheap 2-bedroom apartment so the kids had a stable environment. He continued working the night shift at Blackwood Industrial. The kids adapted, though Ava occasionally asked if Mommy can come by. He let Ruby see them on weekends, supervised in a neutral park or at Janet's house. All the while, he felt a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. Heather might be gone, but she was the type who thrived on chaos. If she decided to strike again, falsely accusing him or dragging him into some humiliating meltdown, he needed to be ready. And so, every step he took, every piece of evidence he gathered, was part of a bigger plan. The plan to keep himself safe and maybe, if the chance arose, exact a final revenge on the people who nearly destroyed his life. Chapter 7. One late afternoon, as Raymond clocked into his shift, Vincent approached him near the locker area with a serious expression. There's a guy here on day shift named Martin. He used to party with Bradley and Heather. Might know dirt on them. Raymond frowned. Martin, which Martin? Vincent jerked a thumb. Martin Delgado, forklift operator. Rumor says he attended a couple of their swinger gatherings. He might have direct knowledge of Heather's manipulations. Raymond's pulse quickened. This could be the break he needed. Thanks, Vincent. I'll see if I can talk to him. Later, he cornered Martin during an overlap in their shifts. Martin was a wiry man with tattoos sleeving his arms. He seemed wary at first. What's this about? Raymond explained in low tones. I need the truth about Heather and Bradley, how they manipulate people. They've caused massive damage in my life. Martin's eyes flickered. Look, man, I don't want trouble. I know they're hardcore in the swinger scene, but that's their business. Raymond pressed gently. Did you ever witness them setting up a married couple or blackmailing folks? Martin hesitated, then sighed. I did see Heather bragging once about seducing some guy just to cause a rift in his marriage. She'd laugh about it, like it was a game. And Bradley was no angel. They'd make bets on who they could get to join them. A flicker of revulsion shot through Raymond. Any chance you'd be willing to sign a statement? Or talk to my lawyer about it? Martin shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to get dragged into legal drama, but if you subpoena me, I guess I'd have to tell the truth. Raymond nodded, a glimmer of hope rising. I understand. Thanks. Just keep your phone on. My attorney might contact you. The next day, he relayed this conversation to Belinda. She leaned forward, eyes alight. This is good. If Heather tries anything else, we can call Martin as a witness to her manipulative patterns. It might bolster your claim if they attempt defamation. Raymond exhaled relief. I don't just want to defend myself. I want them to face consequences. Heather literally blackmailed me to sleep with her, then claimed I assaulted her. She orchestrated Ruby's downfall, too. Belinda gave a tight smile. We'll see what's possible in terms of civil suits. For now, focus on finalizing the divorce and securing custody. If Heather resurfaces, we'll be ready. He nodded, but inwardly vowed that if Heather or Bradley tried to ruin him further, he'd retaliate with everything he had. That weekend, Ruby came to pick up the kids for an afternoon at the park. She looked worn, dark circles under her eyes. The kids rushed to her arms, excited. She offered Raymond a sad smile. They'll be back by 6. As they left, he watched from his apartment doorway, his heart heavy. This was their new normal, a fractured family, the kids shuttling back and forth, all because of her betrayal and Heather's twisted games. He spent the afternoon pacing, consumed by restless anger. The more time passed, the less he saw a chance of reconciliation. The bitterness was too deep. At least soon, the legal aspect might be wrapped up, and he could move on. Just when he thought Heather was out of the picture, an unknown number flashed on his phone. He answered, and that familiar, seductive voice said, "Miss me?" His stomach clenched. "Heather," she laughed softly. "Heard about your custody hearing. Congrats on being a date off the year. Enjoying my sister's meltdown?" He seethed. "What do you want? Where are you?" "Far away for now." Her tone dripped with mock sweetness. "Bradley and I had a spat. He's sleeping on a friend's couch, last I heard. But hey, I might swing by soon." Raymond's hand tightened on the phone. "Stay away from me and my kids." She chuckled. "Oh, Ray, so full of threats. But we both know you have a weak spot for vengeance. Maybe I do too. If I come back, we could finish what we started." He forced calm, voice low. "If you show your face, I'll get a restraining order. Don't test me, Heather." She gave a mocking sigh. "You think a piece of paper scares me? I do what I want. Keep an eye out, lover boy." Then she hung up. Heart pounding, he sank onto the couch, fury and dread swirling. She was the absolute worst. He had to ensure she never got the chance to ruin more lives. That evening, Ruby returned the kids on time. She lingered at the door after they ran inside. "Ray," she began softly, "I know you don't want to hear this, but I think Heather might be back in town. She called me, too. She said something about not being done with us." He nodded grimly. "Yeah, she called me, too. She thrives on chaos." Ruby wrung her hands. "What if she tries to sabotage our divorce or cause more drama that hurts the kids?" He exhaled. "Then I'll make sure she doesn't succeed." She looked at him with a flicker of the old warmth. "Is there any chance we can at least work together? Stop her from messing with our kids?" He studied her face. "Once, I loved her deeply." Though the pain was fresh, he recognized that on the topic of their kids, they could align. "Yeah," he said curtly. "For their sake." She nodded, tears gathering. "Thank you." Sure enough, within days, rumors spread that Heather was spotted bar-hopping in town. Martin texted Raymond, "Saw your psycho sister-in-law at Rusty's pub. Watch your back." Raymond's tension skyrocketed. This woman had lied about him, orchestrated an affair, and potentially destroyed his marriage. He was sure she had more cunning plots up her sleeve. If she whipped up new accusations or confronted him violently, it could derail everything. Late one night, in his small apartment, he rummaged through old photos and records. He found an envelope containing a faded photo from high school Heather, smiling, with her arms around him and two other friends. The memory hammered home how long she'd been playing these manipulative games. He whispered to himself, "Not anymore. This ends." A few afternoons later, he received an unmarked envelope in his mailbox. Inside were several printed screenshots. They appeared to be messages between Heather and someone labeled T. The conversation revealed details about setting up some poor sap for drama, references to sexual blackmail, and a mention of, "The sister can be swayed if we push the right buttons." He read them over, adrenaline surging. This was the smoking gun. The texts were dated about a month before his hospital incident. It didn't explicitly mention his name, but it strongly implied Heather was orchestrating a scenario to break up a marriage. The final lines, "He refuses me, I'll twist it around, maybe cry rape, then watch the meltdown." He stared at the words, heart pounding. If these messages were real, it confirmed everything. But who sent them? And how legit were they? He noticed a cryptic note on the last page. "Use wisely. A friend." He rushed the documents to Belinda. She examined them, pursing her lips. "We need to verify their authenticity, but if they're genuine, this is huge. It proves premeditation on Heather's part." She tapped the pages. "If we can connect T to a known associate, maybe we show a chain of conspiracy. Let me see if I can have a tech specialist confirm the metadata." Raymond nodded, adrenaline buzzing. "This could be the nail in Heather's coffin. She can't keep claiming I assaulted her if we show she planned to fake it." Belinda's eyes gleamed. "Indeed. Let's hope we can validate it quickly." A day later, while finishing his shift, he got a frantic call from Ruby. "Heather's outside my house, banging on the door. She's saying she wants to talk or she'll burn everything down. I'm scared." His gut twisted. "Call the police, I'll head over." He rushed off, calling Officer Burton en route. She agreed to meet him at Ruby's address. When he arrived, the scene was chaotic. Neighbors peeking out windows, Heather shrieking on the front lawn, reeking of booze. Ruby stood behind the locked door, trembling. Raymond stepped out of his car carefully, phone recording discreetly. "Heather, calm down," he demanded. "Go home." She whirled on him. You liar told everyone I'm some manipulative slut. He stayed a safe distance, capturing her meltdown on video. Perfect evidence. You are manipulative, Heather. You tried to blackmail me. You set me up. She stomped forward. Stop humiliating me or I'll... Sirens flared, and Officer Burton arrived with backup. Heather was too drunk or enraged to run. She spat curses as the police tried to restrain her. While the officers cuffed a belligerent Heather, Officer Burton spotted Raymond's phone. You recording? He nodded. In case she tries to claim assault again. Burton gave him a measured look. Smart. This definitely shows she's the aggressor. Heather, pinned against the squad car, screamed at Ruby. You worthless sister! You let him get away with everything! Ruby, tears on her cheeks, stood by the porch, hugging herself. In that moment, a sense of vindication rippled through Raymond. He had actual footage of Heather's insanity, her unprovoked threats. This could finally break her facade. Officer Burton took statements. Then they loaded Heather into the patrol car for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. As the car peeled away, Ruby exhaled a shaky breath. Thank you for coming. Raymond nodded. I couldn't leave you alone with that maniac. She pressed her lips together, gaze flicking to the ground. I'm sorry, Ray, for everything. He said nothing, just turned to walk back to his car. The interplay of sorrow and relief churned in him. Another step in the unraveling of Heather's malicious web, and maybe, just maybe, a step closer to the final reckoning. Chapter 8. Heather spent a night in county jail for her drunken outburst. By the following morning, her mugshot circulated among local gossip circles. Bradley was nowhere to be found to bail her out. Ultimately, she posted bond herself and left with a scowl, thoroughly humiliated. Raymond received word that Heather's meltdown was the talk of the town. The conversation logs he'd gotten were now with Belinda for authentication. The tide was turning against Heather. In the midst of the divorce proceedings, the court ordered a mediation session to see if an agreement could be reached on property division. Ruby, looking exhausted but resolute, sat across from Raymond with lawyers at both sides. The mediator, an older man with kind eyes, explained, We'll attempt to settle the marital property, including the house, finances, and so on, in an amicable manner. Are you two prepared to discuss terms? Belinda nodded. Yes. My client wants to sell the house and split the proceeds. He's also requesting no spousal support obligations due to Ruby's adultery. Ruby's lawyer didn't protest too strongly, only requesting some time for Ruby to secure stable living arrangements. Ruby herself spoke in a low voice. I agree to sell the house. I can stay with my mother until I figure out my next place. Raymond felt a sting of old memories once. That house was their dream. Fine, he said stiffly. We can arrange that. They hammered out details, with the mediator occasionally asking if there was hope for reconciliation. Ruby looked pained, but Raymond's expression was firm. No. After the mediation session ended, the lawyers stepped away to finalize documents. Ruby lingered, her eyes brimming with regret. Ray, can we talk alone? He shrugged, swallowing tension. Sure. They walked to a quiet hallway. She took a shaky breath. I don't expect forgiveness. But for what it's worth, I never truly wanted Bradley. I was just lost, furious, misguided. I can't believe I let Heather push me that far. He looked at her, seeing a woman battered by guilt. You made your choices. She manipulated you, sure, but it was still you in that moment. She nodded, tears sliding down. I know. I destroyed our marriage, and I'll regret it every day. A pang of sadness twisted in him. He remembered the early years of their marriage laughter, road trips, the births of their kids. Now everything lay in ruins. I can't do this anymore, he said quietly. I appreciate you wanting to take responsibility, but I'm done. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. I understand. The next week, they had another brief custody hearing to finalize the arrangement under the divorce process. The judge reviewed the new developments. Heather's arrest, Ruby's improved clarity that the sister is no longer welcome, and Raymond's stable environment for the children. In the end, the judge granted them joint legal custody with Raymond retaining primary physical custody. Ruby got generous visitation rights, but the kids would live with Raymond primarily. Outside the courtroom, Ruby mustered a faint smile. At least the kids have stability with you. I'll do my best to be a good mom when I have them. He managed a curt nod, not unkindly. Thanks. Under the court's orders, they listed the marital home for sale. Raymond visited one last time to gather personal items. Walking through the living room, memories of that dreadful night smacked him like a punch to the gut. The imprint of the sofa loomed, a ghost of betrayal. He grabbed photos off the mantel family pictures he still cherished for the kids' sake. In the bedroom, he found old anniversary cards from a happier era. His chest ached, all gone. He left the place with a sense of finality, locking the door behind him. He never wanted to set foot there again. A few days after, rumors swirled that Heather attempted to confront Raymond at his workplace. Security refused her entry. She caused a small scene in the lobby, screaming that Raymond had ruined her life. By the time he heard about it, she was gone. Management asked him if he needed any legal recourse. He assured them he was working with his lawyer. That night, he filed for a restraining order, citing the repeated harassment. Given her history, the judge approved a temporary protective order, forbidding Heather from contacting or approaching Raymond or the kids. To Raymond's astonishment, Bradley emailed him. The subject line read, "I owe you an explanation." The email was a rambling confessional. Bradley claimed Heather manipulated him too, that he'd never had real feelings for Ruby, that it was all part of a twisted bet. He apologized for being a coward and admitted he'd run off to avoid Heather. He even offered to testify that Heather orchestrated the entire fiasco if it helped. Raymond's stomach churned with disgust. So Bradley was scapegoating Heather now, painting himself as a victim. Typical. Yet if Bradley was willing to confirm the premeditation, that could be valuable. He forwarded the email to Belinda, who replied, "This is gold. We can keep it in case she tries more stunts." A few days later, Belinda called Raymond with excitement. "We confirm the screenshot texts are legitimate. Our tech guy traced the metadata to Heather's phone. T stands for some friend named Trisha, apparently. But the content is real. Heather explicitly planned to frame you for assault." Raymond nearly dropped his phone. "Thank God. So we can prove it if she tries more nonsense?" "Absolutely," Belinda said. "We can also consider a civil suit for defamation. But that's up to you. Right now, you're in a strong position." He nodded, adrenaline pumping. Heather's done. If she dared come at him legally again, he'd unleash this evidence. At Belinda's urging, he and his lawyer sat down with Officer Burton to share the newly authenticated messages. The officer read them, her expression growing stony. This definitely undermines Heather Emmett's credibility. If she tries to press charges or manipulate the system again, she could face perjury or false police report charges. Belinda asked, "Is there any chance the DA might file charges against Heather for her attempted false rape setup?" Burton exhaled. "It's possible, but we typically need a formal complaint from the alleged victim and conclusive proof of an actual false report filed. Right now, it's more of an attempt, not a fully filed statement." Raymond felt a tinge of disappointment, but also relief that he was now protected from her allegations. "Well, at least I'm safe from further slander." Burton nodded. "Stay alert. She's unpredictable." With Heather largely discredited, Bradley AWOL, and Ruby cooperating for the children's sake, Raymond's life finally gained a semblance of calm. The divorce was on track for finalization within weeks. He re-established a routine, working nights, caring for the kids, occasionally meeting with Ruby to exchange them. He started imagining a future without this constant storm overhead. Perhaps he could move to a better apartment or buy a small place once the house sold. He still carried a scar from the vase blow, but at least the emotional wounds were slowly scabbing over. The entire fiasco had changed him. He was no longer that naive husband reading online stories about cheating wives as a mere curiosity. He was a survivor, with a sharpened edge. If Heather or anyone else tried to sabotage him, they'd find he'd learned to fight back smartly, relentlessly. Chapter 9. 3 months rolled by in a slow, cautious rhythm. The sale of the marital home was nearly final, and Raymond's divorce from Ruby edged closer to completion. Though they still had official dissolution hearings to come, they'd reached a workable agreement on custody. The children's emotional well-being took priority, so they bounced between Raymond's modest apartment and Ruby's new rented townhouse near her school. The separation had become their new normal. Ava, now 9, adjusted with surprising resilience, leaning into her father's protective presence. Ethan, 7, seemed more vulnerable. He'd grown clingy at night, sometimes waking from nightmares. Raymond suspected the chaos with Heather and Bradley left emotional scars on both kids. Meanwhile, Raymond's job at Blackwood Industrial stabilized. He'd switched from full night shifts to a swing schedule some evenings, some days, so he could see the kids more. He stayed determined, forging ahead without illusions, certain that the best outcome was simply to maintain peace for his children and keep the toxic influences at bay. 2. The emergence of killer instincts for evidence. Raymond frequently exchanged messages with Belinda Soto, his lawyer, ensuring any new threats from Heather or Bradley were documented. She'd become more than an attorney, almost a confidant in his quest to finalize everything with minimal drama. One afternoon, Belinda called with an update. "Ray, I've scoured the local legal filings. Heather hasn't initiated any lawsuits or formal accusations, but keep your guard up. She's unpredictable." He nodded, phone pressed to his ear. "I learned that the hard way. I still have the text logs from that unmarked envelope. Our tech says they're legit. So, if she tries to scream harassment or assault again, we can bury her with her own words." Belinda's voice carried a wry smile. "Exactly. Meanwhile, the divorce hearing's in 3 weeks. If Ruby remains cooperative, the judge might finalize it on the spot." Raymond exhaled relief. 3 weeks. He was so close to severing the final tether to the nightmare that started with Heather's intrusion and Ruby's misguided revenge affair. Yet, he had a hunch that the biggest storm sometimes erupted right before the calm. That weekend, Ruby asked to meet him at a neutral cafe, no lawyers, no kids, just them. Initially wary, he agreed for the sake of closure. He found her seated in a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. She wore a subdued blouse, hair pulled back neatly as though presenting a humbler version of herself. He slid into the seat across from her. "What's this about?" She hesitated, eyes flicking to his. "I know the divorce hearing is soon. I wanted to talk to see if we can remain civil if not friendly for the kids' sake." Raymond folded his arms, guarded. "Civil is fine. Friendly might be a stretch." She swallowed, nodding. "I understand. I'm not expecting miracles. But I've started therapy sessions to handle my guilt and confusion. I'm also seeing, a coworker from school. He's just a friend, but it helps to talk." A jolt of conflicting emotion ran through Raymond. She's moving on. He reminded himself he had no claim over her life anymore. "That's good. I hope you find what you're looking for." She set down her mug. I also want you to know that I keep the kids away from any negative talk about you. I tell them you're a good dad who loves them. They shouldn't carry our mistakes as their burden." He nodded slowly, appreciating the gesture. "I do the same. I'm not trashing you to them. Kids deserve better than that." She gave a small, sad smile. "Thank you." Her gaze dropped. "I know we can't rewind time, but I'm relieved to see you healing." He said nothing, the unspoken truth that he'd never fully trust her again, forming a quiet boundary between them. Still, this was better than bitter hostility. Maybe they could be decent co-parents after all. Ava's 10th birthday approached. Ruby proposed a small celebration together so the kids wouldn't feel torn. They booked a Saturday afternoon at a family-friendly pizza place with arcade games. The thought initially tied Raymond's stomach in knots, celebrating with Ruby. After all this? But for Eva's sake, he agreed. On the day, he arrived with a modest gift, a new pair of rollerblades Eva had been eyeing. Ruby showed up with a pastel cake. The four of them, plus Ethan, navigated an odd dynamic that mixed nostalgia with regret. Yet Ava beamed from ear to ear, so enthralled by the arcade tokens that she barely sensed the tension among the adults. Between chuckles at the kids' excitement, Ruby leaned over to Raymond. "Thank you for doing this. She's so happy." He managed a civil nod, returning his focus to the children. That's what matters, he told himself. Their happiness. He refused to let the memory of Ruby and Bradley overshadow his daughter's big day. As they wrapped up the party, Ruby mentioned quietly, "Heather left me a voicemail last night. She wants me to forgive her, or something. She says she's turning over a new leaf." She grimaced. "I don't believe her, obviously." Raymond's jaw clenched. "Don't feed the troll. That woman is a professional manipulator. Don't return her calls." Ruby nodded. "Agreed. But it freaked me out. She used to have such power over me, making me do things I never imagined." He studied Ruby's trembling hands. Though his anger toward her remained, he recognized Heather was the ultimate puppet master. "If she calls again, block her. Let your lawyer know if it escalates." She swallowed hard. "Right." Then she mustered a thin smile at the kids who were clamoring for one more round of arcade tickets. The ephemeral sense of peace cracked whenever Heather's name surfaced. As the court date loomed, Raymond felt an odd blend of relief and anxiety. The official end of his marriage symbolized both freedom and the final confirmation that he'd lost the woman he once vowed to love forever. The cheating stories he used to read online suddenly felt trivial compared to the raw devastation he'd endured in real life. He spent hours ensuring every piece of documentation was in order. Proof of Ruby's infidelity, custody arrangement details, the property sale contract. Belinda assured him it would likely be swift, given that Ruby wasn't contesting. At night, though, old wounds ached. He'd stare at the ceiling in his Spartan bedroom, remembering the warmth of a shared bed, the comfort he once took for granted. The bitterness that replaced that warmth felt hollow. "It's for the best," he'd murmur to himself, ignoring the pang in his chest. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the county courthouse. Raymond arrived in a neatly pressed shirt, Belinda at his side. Ruby stood with her lawyer, eyes down, posture resigned. A handful of other couples waited for their cases to be called. The judge, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewed the settlement terms. Both parties consent to dissolution on grounds of adultery. Division of property. The net proceeds from the house sale are to be split evenly. Child custody arrangement as previously stipulated. Ms. Fletcher waives spousal support. Mr. Fletcher waives any claim on her personal accounts. Any objections? Neither side voiced any. The judge nodded. "Very well. Divorce is granted. The final decree will be filed forthwith. Next case? Just like that, it was over. The gavel's echo felt anticlimactic, considering the months of turmoil. Raymond exchanged a brief glance with Ruby. She offered a watery smile, tears brimming. "Bye," she whispered. Then she turned and left the courtroom. He stood there, heart pounding with a swirl of emptiness and relief. Belinda patted his shoulder. "It's done, Ray. You're free." He exhaled. Yeah, free. Outside the courthouse, he found himself leaning against a column, gazing at the crisp sky. The finality weighed on him. 11 years of marriage, gone. The last half-year had been an unrelenting storm that left him battered, suspicious, and hardened. Yet a strange sense of possibility flickered. He could start anew, raise his kids without the looming dread of Heather or the confusion of Ruby's betrayal. The bitterness would fade eventually. Maybe he'd learn to trust again someday. He pulled out his phone, typed a short text to Ruby. "Hope you find peace." Then he pocketed it, uncertain if it was the right gesture, but at least it was honest. Exactly 1 week after the divorce, as Raymond collected the kids from school, a police cruiser pulled up behind him. Officer Burton emerged, face tense. "Mr. Fletcher, we got a 911 call about an incident at Ruby's townhouse. Seems Heather forced her way in, possibly armed with a kitchen knife. She's threatening self-harm and, well, we're not sure what else." Raymond felt his blood turn to ice. "What? Is Ruby okay? My kids." "They're with me, but is Ruby alone in there?" Burton nodded. "Your kids are safe with you. Ruby's the one at risk. Backup units are on site, but Heather's on a rampage. She's shouting about her life being ruined, blaming you and Ruby. They might want you to come talk to her since you have a protective order, but ironically, you might be the only one she'll listen to." He clenched his jaw, dread seizing him. "I'll do whatever I can, but I'm not waltzing into a knife-wielding meltdown. Let's see the scene first." The tension soared. After everything, he wanted nothing more to do with Heather. Yet if Ruby was in danger, he couldn't stand by. Sirens flashed at the curb by Ruby's modest townhouse. Neighbors peered from windows. 2 officers crouched behind a patrol car. Another had a bullhorn, urging Heather to come out calmly. The front door stood ajar. Raymond pulled up, instructing Eva and Ethan to stay in the car, with the doors locked. "Uncle Vincent is calling me," he lied to quell their fears. Then he approached Officer Burton. "What do you need me to do?" She exhaled. "Heather's inside with Ruby. She's cornered her in the living room, brandishing a knife, threatening to harm herself or Ruby if anyone tries to intervene. She's in a manic state." Raymond's heart pounded. "And you think me going in helps?" Burton hesitated. "We tried negotiating. She keeps screaming for you. She says you owe her a hearing, something about wanting you to, I don't know, confess your guilt." A wave of disgust rolled over him. She's unhinged. But Ruby was trapped. He glared at the door. "Fine. Let me try talking from the doorway, but keep your guns ready." Chapter 10. Raymond stepped cautiously into the foyer. The living room lay ahead, light seeping from a single lamp. He could hear sobs, a frantic shuffle, then Heather's harsh voice. "Back off, or I'll do it, Ruby. I swear." His pulse hammered. He forced a steady tone. "Heather, it's me, Raymond. I'm alone." A strangled laugh echoed. "Raymond, you liar, you monster," Heather spat. "You destroyed me. No one believes me about the forced sex. Bradley left me. The cops took me in. Everyone thinks I'm scum." He ventured closer, seeing the pair huddled near the couch. Ruby knelt on the floor, tear-stained, while Heather loomed over her, a large kitchen knife trembling in her hand. Her hair was wild, eyes red from tears or mania. She whipped around, noticing Raymond at the threshold. "You want to call the cops on me again? You want me locked up?" she hissed. He kept his hands visible, voice calm. Heather, you need help. Put the knife down. We can talk. She shook her head violently. Talk? Talk about how I tried to get you in my bed, how you refused me, how I twisted it into a fake rape, or how I roped Ruby into screwing Bradley just to tear your marriage apart. It was all a game to me until it wasn't. Now I lost everything. Ruby sobbed. Heather, please. This isn't the way. Heather's face contorted with anguish. I gave you all a show and now I'm the villain. Maybe I am. But you were supposed to be mine first, Ray. In high school, we had that one night. Why'd you choose my sister over me, huh? Raymond swallowed, remembering that fleeting teenage fling that had haunted them all. Because I loved Ruby, he said softly. But that was years ago, Heather. She let out a bitter laugh, eyes gleaming with tears. And that's my fault? I can't stand how the world turned on me. I have nothing left. Bradley's gone, you're divorcing Ruby, and my own sister hates me. Her gaze flicked to Ruby's cowering form. Ruby trembled. Heather, we're not beyond saving. We can get you therapy, rehab, something. Just put the knife down. Heather's hand clenched the handle so tightly, her knuckles whitened. No. My life is in ruins. Maybe I should just end it. She pressed the blade to her own wrist, panting. Raymond's heart pounded. Heather, don't do that. You can fix your life, but not if you're dead. He took a slow step forward, ignoring the spinning dread in his gut. I know you feel worthless, but you're not. We can help you find a new start. Her eyes darted, half-crazed. You want to help me? You? The man who's building a case to bury me in court? Lying to the cops about how I framed you? He inhaled shakily. You did frame me. But that doesn't mean I want you dead. Enough people have been hurt, Heather. Let's end this cycle. She stared, tears streaming, anger warring with despair. Ruby edged aside, grabbing a pillow as if to block the blade if needed. The tension crackled in the air. In a sudden shift, Heather yanked the blade away from her wrist and seized Ruby's hair, pressing the knife near her throat. Or maybe I should take your precious wife out first, she hissed, voice trembling. Then you'll know my pain. Ruby let out a strangled gasp, eyes wide with terror. Blood drained from Raymond's face. Heather, you're blaming the wrong person. Ruby never tried to hurt you. Heather's voice rose to a shrill pitch. No! She got everything I ever wanted, the stable marriage, the kids, and even after you discovered her cheating, you still treat her with some decency. Meanwhile, me? I'm the devil. I was always the black sheep, the used toy. Ruby whimpered. I never tried to take anything from you. Heather's grip tightened, the knife edge nicking Ruby's skin. A small droplet of blood appeared. Ruby froze, tears streaming. Stop, please, she begged. Raymond's limbs shook with adrenaline. He forced his voice to remain steady. Heather, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll end up in prison for the rest of your life, or worse. Is that what you want? She trembled, blinking rapidly. I have nothing, she repeated, voice cracking. Nothing but a black hole inside me. Outside, the faint sound of a police bullhorn drifted in. We have the place surrounded. Release any hostages. Heather flinched, pivoting to glare at Raymond. You brought the cops again? He raised his hands in surrender. I told them to wait. I came in to talk to you. They're worried you'll hurt Ruby or yourself. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to Ruby's trembling face. Maybe I should just do it. Then you can all watch me bleed out. Ruby sobbed, lips quivering too hard to speak. Raymond took another measured step. He was just a few feet away now, close enough to see the terror etched into Ruby's features, the mania swirling in Heather's eyes. In that fraught second, Ruby clenched her jaw, a sudden burst of self-preservation overriding her fear. She jerked sideways, elbowing Heather's ribs. It wasn't a strong hit, but enough to knock the blade away from her throat. Heather shrieked, stabbing forward. The blade caught Ruby's shoulder. Ruby screamed in pain, collapsing sideways. Blood darkened her blouse. Raymond sprang into action, lunging for Heather's wrist. The two grappled violently, the knife scraping across the floor. She kicked at him, nails raking his arm, furious tears streaming down her face. With a pained grunt, he wrested the knife from her grip, flinging it across the room. She flailed, punching his bandaged head wound from months before. Spots danced in his vision, but he clung on. Shouts exploded from the doorway. 2 officers stormed in, guns drawn. Heather continued clawing at Raymond, screaming incoherent curses. The cops tackled her, pinning her to the carpet. She thrashed, spitting rage. Meanwhile, Ruby lay moaning, clutching her shoulder. Blood seeped through her fingers. Raymond crawled to her, his own arms trembling with adrenaline. "Ruby, oh God, stay awake." She blinked up at him, tears streaming, voice shaky. I'll be okay, I think. It just hurts." He pressed a hand around her wound to slow the bleeding. The next moments blurred as paramedics rushed in. The cops dragged a hysterical Heather out in handcuffs. Ruby was loaded onto a stretcher, face pale. Raymond hovered by her side, ignoring the swirl of chaos around them. Hours later, Ruby lay in a hospital bed, a fresh bandage on her shoulder. The doctor assured them the knife hadn't severed major arteries, so she'd recover with no permanent damage. A relieved sob escaped her lips when she heard the news. Raymond stood by the bedside. They'd done this hospital routine before only last time he was the patient. She gave him a watery smile. "Thanks for saving me again." He swallowed, emotions knotting in his chest. I'm just glad you're alive. That was insane." She nodded, tears tracking down her cheeks. "Heather, I never realized how broken she was. She used to be so full of life, but somewhere she snapped. I can't believe she was about to—" She shuddered, trailing off. Raymond gently placed a hand on her uninjured arm. "She's in custody now. She'll be charged with assault with a deadly weapon, probably more." Ruby sniffed. "I don't know if I hate her or pity her." He sighed, tension easing from his shoulders. "Maybe both. At least she can't hurt you or the kids anymore." Over the next few days, official charges were filed. Attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, resisting arrest. The local news picked up a brief mention. "Local woman charged after violent incident with sibling." Bradley, hearing the news from afar, sent Ruby a text offering belated sympathy. Ruby ignored it. She wanted nothing more to do with him or the entire fiasco. Raymond remained at Ruby's side while she recovered, albeit with a respectful distance. She insisted on returning to her townhouse once discharged, but he stuck around a few days, ensuring the place was safe. He even installed a basic home security system. Eva and Ethan stayed with Janet temporarily to shield them from the trauma. Ruby wanted to see them once she was stable. The kids only knew that their aunt did something bad, and Mom got hurt. They asked if Aunt Heather was gone for good. Raymond gently said yes. One late evening, as he prepared to leave Ruby's place, she mustered a quiet, "Ray, can we talk for a minute? Please?" He paused, coat in hand. "Sure." She sat on the couch, arm in a sling, wincing. "I'm not trying to dredge up the past, but after what happened, I realize how close I came to losing my life. And the first person I thought of was you, ironically." He swallowed hard, mixing pity with lingering anger. "I'm just glad you're all right." She offered a sad smile. "I know we're divorced. We're not going backward. But I want you to know how sorry I am for everything. Heather messed with me, yes, but I also made my own terrible choices. I see that so clearly now." A wave of conflicting feelings stung his eyes. Part of him wanted to brush it off. Another part felt a surge of old love. He settled on, "We can't change it. We can only do better for the kids." She nodded, tears glinting. "I'd like us to be not enemies, at least. Maybe even friends. You saved me from my own sister. That means something." He exhaled. "I won't promise we'll be best friends, but I don't hate you. I guess that's a start." A hint of relief passed over her face. Then he stood, quietly leaving into the night, uncertain what the future held, but feeling a corner had turned a shift away from pure bitterness toward cautious acceptance. Chapter 11. In the weeks following Heather's dramatic arrest, life finally began to settle. Ruby's shoulder wound healed steadily, aided by physical therapy. The kids returned to living part-time with each parent, grateful that the bad aunt scenario was behind them. Raymond resumed a steadier routine at the factory, though he juggled pickups, dinners, and bedtimes with ease that only came from months of forced single parenthood. Despite the chaos, a sense of calm enveloped him. The divorce was final. Heather was out of the picture, hopefully locked away for a significant time if justice prevailed. Ruby, though far from a best friend, was at least a cooperative co-parent. Every so often, they even exchanged brief, cordial texts about the kids' achievements. One evening, after tucking Ethan in, Raymond reflected on how drastically his life had changed in under a year. He used to be the naive husband reading salacious cheating tales. Now, he was the hardened survivor of his own real-life cheating and revenge saga. He brushed a hand through his hair, exhaling. "We made it out," he thought. Scarred, but alive. Belinda called with an update. Heather's legal team was exploring a plea deal. The charges were serious attempted murder, assault, brandishing a weapon. If she pled guilty to lesser offenses, she might avoid a lengthy trial. "But," Belinda noted, "the prosecutor may want Ruby and you to testify about that night. Are you two willing to do that?" Raymond felt a twist of pity. "If it means no more chaos, yes. She tried to kill Ruby. She can't just walk free." Ruby, upon hearing it, agreed. "I'll testify if needed. I'm done letting her intimidate me." Still, the notion of a public trial weighed on them both. Another storm, albeit smaller, was on the horizon. A surprising shift emerged in Raymond's private life. He began noticing small gestures from a co-worker at Blackwood Industrial, a single mom named Morgan, who sometimes brought homemade cookies for the break room. They'd chat about raising kids alone, exchanging anecdotes. Morgan had warm brown eyes and a gentle laugh that put him at ease. At first, he dismissed the idea of romance. He was too bruised, but each day he found himself anticipating her presence. She'd offer a supportive ear, never prying about the past. Their conversations turned from casual jokes to deeper confessions about stress, finances, and the roller coaster of single parenting. One day, Morgan invited him for coffee after their shift. He accepted, heart fluttering with a cautious excitement. They sipped coffee at a cozy diner, swapping stories about the factory's quirks. She never once pried about Ruby or Heather. She only asked, gently, if he was truly ready to move forward. He admitted he wasn't sure, but she seemed content with that honesty, smiling warmly. Meanwhile, Heather's case proceeded. The day arrived for a sentencing hearing as she struck a last-minute plea deal for assault with a deadly weapon and some lesser charges. Ruby, though healed physically, still carried emotional scars. The two women hadn't seen each other since that night. Now they faced each other in a solemn courtroom. Raymond sat behind Ruby, hands clenched. Heather appeared in shackles, hair disheveled, but face oddly calm. The prosecutor recounted her violent act, citing witness accounts, the protective order she violated, and her menacing threats. The judge, a stern-faced man, questioned Heather's attorney about her mental state and whether she'd seek psychiatric treatment. Heather's voice was subdued, lacking the feral rage from before. She expressed remorse for her actions, though she claimed to have been pushed to the brink by life's circumstances. Ruby stared at her in silence, tears slipping occasionally. The judge pronounced sentencing, a multi-year prison term with mandatory psychiatric counseling. The final length hovered around 6 to 8 years, with possible parole after 4, depending on good behavior. Heather showed little reaction, as if numb. The gavel fell. The swirling fiasco that had overshadowed their lives concluded in that final clang. After the hearing, as corrections officers led Heather away, she caught Ruby's gaze. For a fleeting second, Ruby stepped forward, parted her lips. Maybe she meant to say, "I'm sorry," or "I love you." But Heather's eyes flickered with regret, tears forming. She whispered, "I never meant for this." Then the officers ushered her out. Ruby stood trembling. Raymond hovered beside her, unsure whether to offer comfort. At last she turned to him, heartbreak shining in her eyes. "She's my sister, I can't hate her, but—" He placed a tentative hand on her shoulder. "You can't fix her," he said gently. "She made her choices. Now she faces the consequences." She nodded, swallowing tears. Then they walked out into the free air. Though the day was cloudy, it felt brighter than any sky they'd shared in recent memory. The final piece of the toxic puzzle was resolved. Heather was gone. With Heather's incarceration, the environment around them stabilized. Ruby devoted herself to teaching, pouring energy into her students. She also kept up therapy. Gradually, she found a measure of self-forgiveness. They still had cordial communication about the kids, sometimes even swapping jokes about mundane life issues like the dog chewing up Ethan's sneaker. Raymond, for his part, found a surprising lift in his spirits. Freed from the constant dread, he recognized that the last year had sharpened him into a more resolute, self-aware man. He spent weekends taking the children hiking or to local museums, relishing the time he might once have taken for granted. He also continued seeing Morgan socially, starting small, like lunches and group outings with kids. It wasn't an all-consuming romance, but something simpler, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Eva thrived in her new routine. She joined a local soccer team, proudly asking her dad to attend every game. Ethan displayed an interest in reading adventure books, often staying up late devouring them by flashlight. He occasionally asked if Aunt Heather would ever come back. Raymond gently explained that she was in prison and likely wouldn't be out for a long time. The boy accepted it with a nod, content that the danger was gone. Ruby also took them on occasional weekend trips, just her and the kids, building a separate but loving bond. They no longer felt yanked between warring parents. Instead, they had a father who'd proven his unwavering devotion, and a mother trying her best to make amends. One day, Ruby and Raymond found themselves side by side in the bleachers at Ava's soccer match. They smiled politely as Ava scored her first goal. Ruby cheered, tears shining. When halftime arrived, Ruby turned to him, exhaling. "I have to ask, do you see us ever reconciling? Not as a couple, but as friends? Real friends?" He studied her, the question heavy. The memory of her betrayal and the months of heartbreak flickered in his mind. But then he saw her sincerity, the growth she'd shown. "I think we can be something like that," he allowed, voice soft. "We share kids. We share a past. We can share a comfortable future if we keep healing." She blinked, tears forming. "Thank you." She managed a genuine smile. "I never thought we'd get here." He returned the smile, a small but real one. "Neither did I." It wasn't the euphoric love they once shared. but it was a better outcome than endless hatred. Months later, a letter arrived for Raymond at his apartment from an address in another state. Inside was a brief handwritten note from Bradley. "Raymond, I hope you're well. Heard about Heather's sentencing. I feel partly responsible for the chain of events. I want you to know I'm sorry for my role sleeping with Ruby, stirring chaos. I'm in therapy now trying to fix myself. If you ever need a statement or anything about Heather's manipulations, I'm here. I guess I'm trying to make amends in my own way. Take care." Bradley Raymond read the note twice, emotions swirling. Amends? He still felt a spark of anger, remembering that night on the couch. But a larger part felt exhaustion, relieved that Bradley was far away. He debated whether to respond, ultimately deciding to toss the letter in a drawer. He had no desire to reconnect with the man, but neither did he crave vengeance. The storm had passed. By the 1-year mark from his divorce, Raymond's life had stabilized. He and Morgan gently explored a deeper relationship, forging trust slowly. The kids accepted her presence with minimal fuss, enthralled that she also had a daughter their age, instant playmate. Ruby dated occasionally, too. She kept it discreet, focusing on ensuring the children weren't confused. She and Raymond openly discussed boundaries, discovering a surprisingly mature approach to co-parenting that would have astonished them a year prior. Ava turned 11, celebrated with a party that both parents attended. They ended up laughing over silly childhood photos, reminiscing about Ava's first steps. The tension that once choked them eased into a strange closeness, not romantic, but shaped by shared history and mutual respect for each other's growth. Chapter 12. On a crisp autumn morning, Raymond woke in his small but cozy apartment. Birds chirped outside the window, golden sunlight splashing across the kids' drawings pinned on the fridge. He padded into the living room, sipping coffee. He was no longer haunted by nightmares of infidelity or false rape accusations. He felt content, even hopeful. Morgan texted, "Good morning. Feel like grabbing Sunday brunch with the kids." He smiled, replying, "Sounds perfect." Glancing at the drawings, one from Eva depicting a happy family with 2 houses labeled moms and dads. Yet joined by a heart, he felt a surge of gratitude. The scenario was far from perfect, but it worked. Later, while waiting for Morgan at the brunch place, he gazed at the swirling cappuccino in his cup. His mind flicked back to the start of everything, reading those salacious cheating wife stories, letting paranoia seep into his marriage. He recalled how that paranoia was a spark, but the real fire was lit by Heather's manipulative schemes and Ruby's misguided revenge. He closed his eyes briefly, remembering the chaos, the hospital visits, the near-jail experience, the humiliations. Yet, here he stood, stronger, more self-assured. The old naive trust was gone, replaced by a mature sense of boundaries, caution, and emotional wisdom. Brunch was lively. The kids traded jokes, Morgan's daughter teased Eva about soccer, and Ethan begged for more pancakes. They parted ways around noon, Morgan heading to drop her daughter at a friend's. Raymond decided to swing by a local bookstore to grab a new reading series for Ethan. Inside the bookstore, he unexpectedly bumped into Ruby. She was browsing the self-improvement section, wearing a comfortable sweater, hair braided loosely. She smiled. "Oh, fancy meeting you here," he chuckled. "Yeah, picking up books for Ethan. You?" She waved a self-help title about coping with guilt. "Just building my reading list. Therapy recommended it." She paused, gazing at him. "You look good happy, I mean." He gave a small shrug. "I am. And you?" She inhaled. "I'm better than I've been in a long time. The kids are blossoming, my job's stable. I still deal with regrets, but it's not crippling anymore." They chatted a bit, discussing random topics like a new coffee shop that opened downtown. At one point, she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Ray, I want to thank you again for not letting bitterness define you, for letting me be part of the kids' lives without hostility. We're all healing because you forgave us in your own way." He felt a stirring of warmth. "I had to let go of the anger. I didn't want to poison the kids or myself. And, well, you've changed too." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Life forced me to, but I'm grateful." They said a cordial goodbye, each walking away with a sense of closure that once seemed impossible. Officially, the old marital house had sold months prior, but there was a small check from the final escrow. Belinda forwarded it to Raymond, a last tie severed. He used part of his share to secure a slightly larger apartment, one with an extra bedroom, so Ava and Ethan could have their own spaces. The kids helped decorate, picking out new curtains and colorful rugs. On move-in day, Ruby dropped by with the kids. She admired the new place. "This is nice bigger kitchen, safer neighborhood too." She asked if they needed help unpacking. He politely accepted. They spent the afternoon assembling a bookshelf, the kids giggling at the comedic mislabeling of parts. At the end of the day, Ruby wiped sweat from her brow, smiling at Raymond. "You've built a good home for them. I'm proud of you." He felt a lump in his throat, recalling the vicious fights, the heartbreak. Yet now they cooperated like old friends. "Thanks," he said softly, meaning it. Time marched on. Ava soared in soccer tournaments and Ethan devoured fantasy novels. They thrived under two households that, while separate, collaborated for the kids' benefit. On birthdays and special holidays, the families occasionally combined to celebrate, each parent bringing a dish or gift. Tension was replaced by a gentle camaraderie. Sometimes, Eva or Ethan asked about the past, why their parents split. Both Raymond and Ruby gently explained that they loved each other once, but made mistakes, and now they love them in two homes instead of one. The children accepted the explanation with the resilience unique to youth. Meanwhile, Morgan's companionship blossomed into genuine affection. She, too, had a messy divorce behind her. They found common ground in single parenting, forging a bond that was comforting rather than tumultuous. After about a year of steady dating, Morgan moved into a townhouse a few blocks from Raymond. They kept their own spaces for independence, but spent most weekends as a blended group, her daughter, his kids, big pizza nights, game sessions. One evening, Morgan startled him by asking, "Do you ever think about marriage again?" He froze, old scars pricking at the memory of heartbreak. She noticed his discomfort and quickly added, "It's okay if you're not ready. I just wonder if you see a future where we formalize this bond." He exhaled, heart pounding. "I do sometimes, but I'm still a bit gun-shy. I want to be sure. I can't handle another meltdown." She nodded understandingly, leaning in for a gentle kiss. "We'll take it slow. I'm in no hurry. We have all the time in the world." He silently thanked her for the patience and acceptance. If life taught him anything, it was that trust must be earned, not forced. Across town, Ruby found a peaceful routine. She continued therapy, occasionally wrote in a journal, reflecting on how she let Heather's lies drive a wedge in her marriage. She dated a kind music teacher, though nothing serious. Sometimes she confessed to her therapist that she wished she could undo the past, but the therapist reminded her, "Regrets shape us into better people if we let them." She was determined to be the best mother she could be. During a random Sunday drop-off, she mentioned to Raymond that she was considering going back to school for a graduate degree in education. She wanted to expand her career opportunities. He smiled encouragingly. "You'd be great at that." She beamed, grateful for his support. "Thanks. I guess it's never too late to start over. A small side note. Rumors that once branded Raymond as an abuser died out, replaced by pity for what Heather put him through. At the factory, co-workers who once whispered behind his back now saw him as a stand-up guy who overcame personal hell. Vincent, the older co-worker, occasionally slapped him on the shoulder, grinning. "See, soldier? Told you to keep your wits about you. Turned out okay, didn't it?" Raymond would smile. "Yeah, thanks for having my back, old man." Vincent winked. "You deserved better from the start." Years passed, and eventually Heather became eligible for a parole hearing. Ruby, after soul-searching, decided to attend, seeking closure. She invited Raymond to come, but he declined, feeling no need to see Heather again. Ruby updated him afterward. Heather seemed calmer, apologetic, describing therapy in prison that confronted her manipulative patterns. The parole board was skeptical, but she got a partial reduction, with heavily supervised parole in another county. She'd remain far from Ruby and Raymond's circles. Ruby admitted feeling a heavy sadness seeing her sister so broken. Yet she also understood the punishment was necessary. She told Raymond, "I hope she truly changes, but I can't let her near our kids. Not after what she did." He nodded. Relieved, Ruby maintained boundaries. On a crisp winter evening, Raymond stood by his apartment window, gazing out at softly falling snow. The children slept in their rooms. Morgan sat on the couch, reading a novel. The glow of holiday lights shimmered along the street. A wave of contentment washed over him. He reflected on the entire journey, from naive suspicion fueled by online stories to a shattered marriage, from false rape accusations to the violent showdown with Heather, from heartbreak to cautious renewal of love. He had come out battered but not destroyed, forging a stable life for himself and his kids. Walking over to Morgan, he gently kissed the top of her head. She smiled, setting her book aside. In that unspoken exchange, he felt hope for the future, a future built on honesty, respect, and hard-earned trust. Outside, the snowfall blanketed the world in quiet. Inside, warmth radiated from a man who'd survived betrayal and vengeance, ultimately finding resilience and a profound new sense of self. This was not the same Raymond who once read about cheating wives in the dark hours. This was a Raymond who had lived through it, overcome it, and risen anew, forging a life on his own terms. Hey, listeners of Temptress Cheating Tales.